Welcome to Richtrybe. Today we're unpacking a massive strategy. It's called the BRRRR method, and it is exactly how you can scale up a real estate portfolio without constantly tapping out your capital.
Okay, I'm genuinely curious about this, because the whole idea of buying multiple investment properties usually sounds like it requires an absolute bottomless bank account. How do you actually pull this off in the real world without going completely broke?
Well, we're going to break it down into 5 clear phases today. First, decoding the BRRRR method. Second, buying and rehabbing distressed properties. Third, renting, tenants, and legal laws. Fourth, refinancing to extract built equity. And finally, weighing risks and repeating.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, decoding the BRRRR method. This acronym is literally a blueprint for wealth building. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Now, at first glance, yeah, it looks exactly like flipping houses, but here's the absolute game changer. Instead of selling the property right after you renovate it for a one-off profit, you hold on to it. You rent it out. The entire goal here is long-term appreciation and steady passive income. Unlike flipping, where you get hammered by short-term capital gains taxes, holding the property lets you build wealth tax efficiently through things like depreciation and having your tenants pay down the loan.
Okay, I totally get the appeal of holding properties for that passive income. But seriously, doesn't this require massive amounts of continuous liquid capital to keep buying? I mean, once your cash is tied up in that first house and the renovations, aren't you just stuck?
Actually, that assumption is exactly what this strategy flips completely on its head. Let's look at Section 2, buy and rehab distressed properties. The magic starts with buying right. You need to find a property that has serious potential but can be bought at a steep discount. We're talking fixer-uppers, bank-owned homes, pre-foreclosures, or houses in highly valuable neighborhoods that desperately need some TLC. You want that sweet spot between obvious disrepair and massive potential. To put that into perspective, let's say you find a distressed home for $100,000 in a neighborhood where fixed-up homes are actively selling for $160,000. That $60,000 gap, that is your sweet spot.
Next up is the rehab phase, and this perfectly illustrates the difference between smart investing and just overspending. Smart rehab involves strategic upgrades, like painting, new flooring, maybe adding a bathroom or finishing a basement, things that literally force the property's value to go up. Over-rehab means sinking your cash into unnecessary luxury upgrades that just do not give you a solid return on investment. Going back to our example, say you invest $20,000 in smart upgrades, like a fresh kitchen and paint. You're now all in for $120,000, but you've forced the property's value up to that $160,000 mark.
Right. Okay, so you're forcing appreciation. But what happens when the dust settles? You've got a newly renovated house, but you still have absolutely no cash in your pocket.
And actually, before we even get to the cash aspect, how do we realistically find tenants and avoid legal trouble? Being a landlord isn't just about casually collecting checks every month, right?
You hit the nail right on the head. Let's move to Section 3, renting, tenants, and legal laws. To make this process seamless, you have to be proactive. You absolutely must comply with federal laws like the Fair Housing Act when you're screening tenants to avoid massive discrimination lawsuits. You also need to verify local zoning ordinances. If you're thinking about doing Airbnb, secure your short-term rental permits before you even buy the property. Because cities are cracking down heavily right now on occupancy limits and owner occupancy mandates. And lastly, standardize your eviction protocols and draft airtight lease contracts. Doing this prevents tiny disputes from turning into process-halting nightmares that just eat up your cash flow.
Financially, the goal here is pretty straightforward. You set the rent high enough to cover your mortgage payments and, ideally, generate some monthly profit on top. So, say your new mortgage and expenses are $800 a month, but you rent the upgraded home out for $1,300. You are now cash flowing $500 every single month.
Okay, so the tenant is paying the mortgage, which is obviously great, but I am still stuck on my earlier question. How does a little bit of monthly cash flow actually help you buy the next property? Saving $500 a month is going to take years to buy another house.
And that brings us to the most crucial step of the entire explainer, Section 4. Refinancing to extract built equity. This is the secret engine of the BRRRR method. After you've rehabbed the home and secured a reliable tenant, you do what's called a cash-out refinance. Here's how that works. You take out a new loan using the newly increased value of the rehabbed property as collateral. Let's finish up our example. The house is now appraised at $160,000. A bank might offer a cash-out refinance at 75% of that new value, which gives you a $120,000 loan. You use that to completely pay off your initial $100,000 purchase and your $20,000 rehab. Boom! You now own a cash-flowing rental property, and you have all your original money right back in your pocket.
Okay, wow, that sounds incredibly powerful when it works perfectly. But let's be real for a second. What if the property just doesn't appraise for what you estimated? Or what if we face unexpected vacancies or get terrible tenants? I mean, this isn't some risk-free magic trick.
You're exactly right. It's not magic. It's calculated execution. Let's look at Section 5, weighing risks and repeating. On the pro side, you have a very clear linear path to wealth building, passive income, and continuous equity. You are literally leveraging one asset to buy another. But on the flip side, the cons are super real. You still need high starting costs for that first down payment and the initial rehab. Finding these properties is incredibly difficult because your margins have to be just perfect. And yeah, speculation is inherently risky. If the real estate market takes a dip, your cash-out refinance might fall apart completely. Spot on. It's an incredibly effective strategy, but it requires deep market research, a rock-solid financial safety net for emergencies, and very hands-on management.
Now, before we reveal the final absolutely crucial step of this explainer that ties the entire loop together, make sure to subscribe to Richtrybe channel, like, comment, and share. It helps us keep bringing you these financial breakdowns.
All right, let's look at Step 5, repeat. This is where the compounding really takes off. You take that $120,000 you just successfully pulled out of property number 1, and you use it to fund the purchase and rehab of property number 2. The cycle starts all over again, but now you have 2 assets instead of 1. It creates a continuous, compounding loop to scale your portfolio, all while reusing that exact same initial pool of capital. It really is a fascinating concept. The whole goal here is to transition from just trading your time for money to building an actual money machine. So, are you ready to build a system that generates income entirely independent of your daily efforts? Check your local market, run the numbers, and see if the BRRRR method is the right strategy for your financial future.